So in the last couple of videos, Patanjali was talking about what is yoga. Yoga is the removal of these mental states that are being superimposed on consciousness. And what are these different mental states? And now he is talking about how does one remove these mental states which are being superimposed on the consciousness. Yeah. And he says there this can be done, means like removal of this mental state can be done by abhyasa and vairagya, right? Literally means practice and detachment. So he says this can be done using practice and this can be done using detachment. Both things has to merge. And then he defined what he means by abhyasa. What does he mean by practice? So the practice means, according to Patanjali, is the practice that is being done to stabilize your attention, right? So whatever practice you are doing, whether it's observing the breath, whether it's observing, reciting a mantra or anything like that, any practice that is being done to stabilize your attention, that is called abhyasa, that is called practice, right? And it requires effort, right? For example, let's say I practice following the breath, right? Breath is a meditation object. I'm trying to stay focused on the breath, right? Now when I try to stay focused on the breath, my mind will go somewhere else, then I come back, and then my mind will go somewhere else, then I come back. That effort is practice, right? They keep coming back to the breath again and again and again is a practice, right? That is called abhyasa. And then he mentioned there's certain quality of abhyasa, there's certain quality of your practice has to be there in order for it to become strong, in order for it to become firm, right? And these are the following. So he says the practice has to continue. He didn't mention what practice you need to do, whatever practice you are doing to concentrate your mind on single point. It has to continue for very long time, dirgha kala, right? It has to continue for a long time. It has to be continuous. You cannot do it for some time and then leave it, then do it for some time, then leave it. It has to be continuous. And then it has to be done with a respect. It has to be done with a confidence, right? So when these condition matches, your practice becomes dharma, your practice becomes firm, right? So very interesting way to put it. Whatever practice you are doing to stabilize your attention is called abhyasa, and that has to have these three qualities. It has to be done for prolonged period of time, it has to be done continuously, and it has to be done with the confidence. And this builds up your concentration. This stabilizes your attention on a single point, right? And that is the first aspect of what Patanjali is recommending to removal of these mental states, right? And then that leads to vairagya, that leads to the complete detachment. And now he's defining what he means by vairagya, what he means by detachment. So the detachment is complete disinterest in any object that you have heard of or you have seen, right? That supreme state of mind is called vairagya, right? That you have no interest in any object, right? It sounds very cold and dull, like if you do have no interest in any object, then why would you do anything and all that. It's actually opposite. For example, when I was a child, I was very much interested in video games, Mario, Contra, Taken, all these kind of things. I was very interested in them, and I was really hooked into that. Yeah, but at this point I have no interest in video games. So it doesn't really matter what kind of video game comes, right? How well the graphics are, or I don't know what is the plot of the story and whatever. I have absolutely no interest in video games, right? I can still go and play if I want, but I have no interest, right? And that frees you, that liberates you from that particular aspect, right? So now I can explore something else. I can explore relationships, I can explore health, I can explore traveling, I can explore different worlds. So I can do a lot more because I'm not so much hooked into that particular thing, right? The same way he's pointing it out, it's not like I'm cold or dull or I have nothing to do kind of thing, right? So the same way Patanjali is saying that this detachment from different sense object, different thing you have heard of, different attachments, when you get free from that, and you get free from that by practicing single pointed concentration, this happens automatically. You don't practice vairagya you do not practice vairagya like a practice. It happens by itself by the practicing of your meditation and other things. Yeah. So here he says that supreme state of mind, right, where you have no attachment to different things, you are free, you are liberated, right? And then you can do whatever you want, right? So that state of mind where you're not interested in any object that you have heard of, anything like that, altogether is called the state of vairagya, right? And that is where you start to become free from these mental superimpositions, these different mental states, that is being superimposed on the consciousness. Yeah. And then he goes further, he says, when the Purusha becomes completely disinterested in the gunas of Prakriti, some technical terms, then it is called Paravairagya. Then it is like a supreme Vairagya. So it's like a ultimate detachment. Yeah. So he says, when the Purusha becomes completely detached from the gunas of Prakriti, Purusha means consciousness in this context. It is coming from Sankhya, this terminology. So Purusha means this consciousness. So when consciousness becomes aware of its own nature, it loses interest in the gunas of Prakriti. The gunas of Prakriti here defines something like all the things in the nature are built up by fabric of tamas, rajas and sattva, which is like again some technical terms to explain how different things are built. Why different people are behaving in different ways. Some people are more ambitious, some people are more balanced, some people are more dull. All these different things can be explained using these three gunas, right? Why different things are in different ways. Yeah. And what Patanjali is saying is not really important to understand all these gunas and everything. What he's saying is that once the consciousness becomes disinterested in very fabric of things, yeah, you're no more interested in even electron, proton or neutron altogether, right? Because the Purusha realize its own nature. That kind of a realization brings complete detachment, the ultimate detachment to everything. Yeah. So that's how you work your way out from these different mental states that we discussed in the last video. By practicing, first you practice your concentration, learn to stay focused on a single point with whatever practice you are doing, but you have to be able to learn to stay focused on a single point, and that brings the detachment to different things, right? Because the state you will get into will be much higher than any other state by consuming different objects. So you start to become detached from different objects of the world, and ultimately as the realization of the consciousness become more and more stronger, you loses interest in the very fabric of things. Yeah. And again, this is not some kind of a dull or cold state. You will become liberated in that sense, right? You become free. Otherwise currently we are too much attached and too much in the bondage of different things.